40 years. That's how long I played the part of the good wife. Every morning I brewed his coffee before the sun rose. Every winter I shoveled the driveway so his shoes wouldn't get wet. 3 years straight I sat by his hospital bed, holding his hand through every scan, every sleepless night, every round of maybe this is the last, until the day he looked at me, thin, pale, alive, only because I'd begged God for it and said I wanted divorce. He didn't even bother to lower his voice. His new soulmate was sitting right there on the other side of the curtain, her hospital wristband still on lipstick too bright for a cancer ward. The nurse glanced at me. I didn't cry. I just smiled. And in that moment, I realized you can spend a lifetime saving someone and still be the one they walk away from the second they can stand on their own. But this isn't a story about heartbreak. This is the story of what happens when the woman they left behind finally gets up and leaves the room. The morning after Charles was discharged, the house still smelled like antiseptic and old flowers. I set out his pills on the counter, 2 pink 3, white the blue one for his blood pressure. I heard footsteps slow, familiar, a little lighter than they used to be. He'd lost 30 pounds in the hospital, but the ego I noticed was heavier than ever. He didn't thank me. Didn't look at the breakfast I'd cooked or the neat stack of insurance forms I'd sorted the night before. He cleared his throat. "I think we should get divorced, Martha." I folded the towel over the sink, waited for the punchline. It didn't come. He kept talking as if reading off a script someone else had written. "I owe Cynthia my life. She took care of me when you couldn't. We've developed feelings. She's moving in. I want to do the right thing. 40 years. That's all it took to be traded for a woman he met while wearing an open-back hospital gown. My son Michael called as soon as he heard. I expected outrage, support, maybe an offer to come by and help me pack his things. Instead, he sighed into the phone and said, "Dad's finally happy, Mom. He's been through so much. Maybe you should, let him live a little." I nearly dropped the phone. Let him live. I was the one who kept him alive. I was the one who signed the forms, paid the bills, sat in that room until my back broke and my hair went gray. And now I was just supposed to step aside so he could be happy with his hospital roommate. The absurdity almost made me laugh. Almost. But then I remembered my place. Not as a wife, not as a mother, but as the only person in this family who's ever finished what she started. So I told Charles, "If you want a divorce, you can have it." And I meant it. Because if 40 years taught me anything, it's that sometimes you don't fight for the marriage. You fight for the woman you used to be before you gave it all away. The next morning, I started packing before the sun came up. Not because he asked me to leave, but because I wasn't about to spend another day in a house where my name was just a formality on the deed. I pulled out 6 cardboard boxes from the garage, taped the bottoms, lined them up by the foot of our his bed. Clothes, shoes, winter coats, the green sweater Michael gave me for Christmas 4 years ago. I didn't pause to fold anything special. Bathroom drawer, toothbrush, hairbrush, prescription bottles. I didn't take any of the family photos, not from the living room, not from the hall. Let Cynthia dust those frames. Downstairs, I left a Post-it on the fridge. Milk expires Thursday. Insurance copay due the 15th. The plumber never fixed the sink in the half bath. Good luck. When I left, Charles was asleep in the recliner, mouth open, the news blaring low. Cynthia was upstairs organizing her new closet. I didn't say goodbye, just pulled the front door shut behind me, listened for the soft click of the lock sliding into place. And for the first time in 40 years, I didn't feel like a trespasser in my own life. I drove to my mother's old house on Cedar Lane. She left it to me in her will. Charles always called it that old dump. It needed a new roof and a fresh coat of paint, but the foundation was solid, unlike some people I could name. Michael called that night. He asked if I'd still come by to cook for his birthday next week. I laughed. A real sharp, almost mean laugh. "I think you're old enough to buy your own cake, Michael." He went silent, then muttered, "Dad's a mess, Mom. Cynthia's no help. Maybe you could just stop by and see if he's okay." I nearly dropped the phone. "Michael, your father is a grown man. He made his choice. Let him lie in the bed he changed the sheets on. He tried again, but you always take care of him." I didn't reply. Because that's the thing about habits, they die the second you let them. And that night, for the first time in 4 decades, I slept in a bed that was mine, in a house that was mine, with nobody to clean up after but myself, and it felt like breathing. A week after I left, Michael showed up at my door holding a takeout bag and looking more lost than usual. He didn't even knock, just let himself in with the key I hadn't thought to change. "Dad says Cynthia can't cook," he announced like this was breaking news. I sipped my coffee. "Is that supposed to be my problem?" He dropped the bag on the table. "He's eating frozen dinners and cereal. The house smells like nail polish remover. Cynthia keeps asking where you keep the mop." I raised an eyebrow. "Why don't you help her mop?" He looked appalled. "That's not my job." There it was. That little Turner family tradition, waiting for the woman to pick up the slack. I let him ramble about how the laundry was piling up, how Dad's pills were scattered all over the bathroom, how the insurance company kept calling but no one answered. Then I pointed at the bag. "What's that?" He sighed. "Leftovers from Emily. She said you might be hungry." Emily, my daughter-in-law, queen of takeout, too busy for small talk. I didn't ask if she'd cooked any of it herself. I knew better. The next day, Charles called. His voice was rough, half defeated, but I could hear Cynthia coaching him in the background. "Martha, the heating bill came. Do you have the online account password?" I let the silence hang. He tried again. "There's also something wrong with the dishwasher." I almost laughed. "Cynthia not handy with an instruction manual." He huffed. "She's trying her best." "Good for her," I said and hung up. By the second week, I stopped answering calls altogether. Michael left voicemails about needing help just until things settled down. Cynthia texted once asking if I had a preferred cleaning service. I deleted the message. Let them learn what a home costs when you treat the person who made it like part of the furniture. Meanwhile, I opened a new bank account in my own name, had the locks changed, booked myself a spa appointment for the following Saturday. I didn't look back, because for the first time I was spending my own money in my own house, on my own peace. And it tasted nothing like regret. It didn't take long for the cracks to show. First, it was the little things. Charles called again this time about the health insurance. Apparently, Cynthia had thrown out all my old paperwork by accident. He needed the login info, my social security number, the name of the pharmacy I used. I told him to call the insurance company. He acted like I'd just handed him a Rubik's Cube. Then the house. The gutters clogged, the lawn went wild, the basement smelled like mildew. Michael texted to ask if I could come by just to check on things. I replied with a smiley face emoji and nothing else. Emily called once frantic because she couldn't find the title to her car. "It's in your filing cabinet," I told her. "Bottom drawer." under the folder marked car stuff. She paused. Wow, you really had everything organized, didn't you? Someone had to, I said. She didn't argue. A month after the divorce, Michael's hours at work were cut. Emily's company went fully remote, and she hated being home all day with Charles and Cynthia. The new Mrs. Turner had discovered that being the fun girlfriend is a lot easier than being the nurse, the chef, and the housekeeper all rolled into one. She started sleeping late, stopped doing laundry, complained about her back. One day, Charles showed up at my new place with a bag of dirty clothes. He stood in the entryway like a stray dog who'd lost his collar. I just need a little help, Martha. Cynthia's not feeling well. I stared at him at the old t-shirt with the coffee stain on the front. I'm not your wife anymore, Charles. He tried to smile. But you're still you. That's right, I said. I am. And I closed the door. I watched through the window as he shuffled down the walk, shoulders hunched, laundry bags sagging like the past he couldn't carry by himself. For a long moment, I felt nothing. Not pity, not guilt, not pride. Just clean, simple peace. Because the truth was settling in for all of us, I wasn't the one who got replaced. I was the one who finally left. By midsummer, the Turner house looked worse than any foreclosure on the block. Cynthia quit her part-time job at the florist. Michael's car was in the shop with an engine problem he couldn't afford to fix. The once perfect lawn had weeds up to my knees, and Charles had started wearing the same stained sweatshirt 3 days in a row. Emily left first. No note, no drama, just gone. Her name disappeared from the mailbox, her shoes from the entryway, her voice from Michael's calls. I heard later she moved to Seattle, took a job at a tech firm, and started dating someone with a boat. Michael called me that week. Not to say he missed me, just to ask if I'd co-sign a loan. I could hear the TV blaring in the background, the barking of Cynthia's little dog, the sharp rise and fall of an argument behind his, "Hey Mom, can we talk?" He didn't ask about my health, didn't ask if I needed anything, just wanted a signature. I let him finish, then asked, "If I say no, what will you do?" He was silent. I waited. Finally, he muttered, "Guess I'll figure it out." I told him that was a good plan. Charles showed up at my new house 2 days later. He was thinner, grayer, hunched like a man who'd misplaced his pride. Cynthia sat in the car outside, smoking with the window-cracked mascara smudged and jaw clenched. He handed me a letter from the bank, overdue mortgage, past due taxes, a bright red final notice. He didn't look me in the eye. "Just thought you'd want to know," he mumbled. "They're foreclosing." I looked at the envelope, then at him. "I'm not your wife anymore, Charles," I said quietly. "That house isn't my problem. Neither are you." He nodded but didn't leave. I held the door open. "I mean it," I said. "You left me for someone else. You can't come back just because the water got cold." He hesitated. He almost said my name the old way, soft, hopeful, like maybe the old rules still applied. But I closed the door before he could finish. I watched from the window as he shuffled down the walk. No anger, no pity, no urge to run after him. Just a strange, steady relief. Because some lessons are only learned when the last safety net finally rips, and this time I wasn't the one holding it up. By the end of August, I got the letter from the city. My mother's house, the old dump on Cedar Lane, was in the path of a new development. City officials offered double the market rate plus moving costs just to get me out before the fall. I signed the paperwork before the ink dried. Within a month, my bank account had more zeros than it ever had in 40 years of marriage. I took myself out for steak that night. Medium rare glass of good wine, not a single apology for eating alone. When Michael heard the news, he called before I could block his number. "Mom, did you see the payout on that land deal?" His voice was too eager, like the years of disappointment might suddenly be erased by a check. "I saw it," I said. He paused. "Are you thinking about sharing it with the family?" I laughed a real, full laugh, the kind that echoes off hardwood floors and brand new countertops. "Michael, you are family, but I already shared 40 years with your father. I'm keeping the rest for myself." He sputtered. "But Dad's in a bad place. Cynthia's lost her mind." I cut him off. "You're a grown man, Michael. Go fix your own life. I'm not an ATM and I'm not your housekeeper. You made your choices." He muttered something about ungrateful mothers, but I'd already hung up. Charles never called. Not to ask for money, not to say he missed me, not to apologize for the way he'd gutted our marriage in the name of starting over. Instead, I heard from a neighbor that Cynthia's son, one she'd never mentioned while Charles was in the hospital, moved in and started running business out of the garage. Police showed up twice. The yard went brown. The siding peeled. The house that once held every memory I owned now looked like a haunted museum for other people's mistakes, and I didn't feel a thing. That winter, I booked a trip to Arizona, desert sunsets, spa days, the first holiday season I'd ever spent without obligation or resentment. I sent Michael a postcard wishing you peace and wisdom. Try not to marry a Cynthia. I didn't write my return address, because for the first time in my life, I didn't need to be found. Winter came early that year, sharp and wet, turning the Turner house into a drafty mausoleum. The rumors trickled in slowly, first from old neighbors, then from Emily, who called just to gloat about how Charles and Cynthia were fighting with Michael over the last decent mattress. Cynthia's son had disappeared with Charles's car, leaving only an empty liquor bottle and a pile of unpaid tickets. The bank took the house a week before Christmas. Michael couch-surfed at friends' places. Charles moved into a one-bedroom rental with peeling linoleum. Cynthia posted GoFundMe links for unexpected hardship, but no one donated. Not even Emily. On Christmas Eve, Michael called. "Mom, can I stay with you for a bit?" Just until I'm back on my feet, I looked around at my clean, quiet home. New floors, new windows, not a single stain I didn't put there myself. "Michael," I said, "when you had a home, you didn't want me in it. Now you don't have one, you still think I should make space for you." He tried to laugh. "It's just temporary, Mom. Temporary is how I spent 40 years cleaning up after all of you." He was silent for a long moment. Finally he whispered, "So that's it. That's it." I hung up, turned off the porch light, watched the snow fall steady, silence softening everything it touched, and for the first Christmas in my entire life, I slept through the night without waiting for anyone to come home. A week later, I donated every leftover holiday decoration from my old life to the City Women's Shelter. A fresh start deserves clean corners, and I was done making room for anyone who only ever showed up with empty hands. Spring came early, and wild magnolia blossoms, blue sky, the hum of construction from a new shopping plaza going up where my mother's house used to stand. I celebrated by buying myself a new car, something red, 2 doors, not a single seat for a grandchild. I took a cruise down the coast, booked a suite just because I liked the view, ate room service in a bathrobe, and tipped every hotel maid double. When the spa asked if I was celebrating something, I just smiled and said, "Yes, I'm celebrating being unclaimed. Michael texted twice. Mom, you've really changed. Are you happy? I didn't reply to either. At home, I started gardening, hired a designer to redo the kitchen, threw out every mug and plate that had "World's Best Mom" printed on it. The doorbell rang one morning, Charles standing on my porch looking smaller than I ever thought possible. He held a single flower. Maybe he thought it was romantic. I heard about the house, he said. You did well for yourself. I always did. I replied, you just didn't notice. He looked at the garden, the new car, the fresh paint on the door. Are you really going to keep all this to yourself? Every penny, I said. That's what's left after 40 years of sharing. He tried to smile. Martha, you don't have to be cruel. I shook my head. This isn't cruelty, Charles. This is what peace looks like when nobody's taken from you anymore. He stood there a moment longer, hope flickering behind tired eyes. But I didn't invite him in. He turned the flower drooping in his hand and walked away. That night, I lay in my king-sized bed, silk sheets cool against my legs, listening to the quiet. No snoring from the next pillow, no one asking where the remote was, no footsteps in the hall, no requests, no sighs, no empty praise, just the soft, certain knowledge that everything around me was mine and mine alone. And for the first time in my entire adult life, I slept without dreaming about who might need me next. I slept like a queen. Summer was thick and green. I spent my days exactly how I wanted, reading on the patio, swimming laps in the new neighborhood pool, ordering things online just because they caught my eye. For the first time, nobody knew my schedule but me. Then, like clockwork, the ghosts tried to return. Michael showed up unannounced. He looked older, tired, no longer so sure of his own cleverness. He stood on my stoop with a cheap bottle of wine and a nervous smile. Mom, I thought maybe we could talk. I leaned on the doorframe. You need something, he stammered. No, I mean yes. I lost my job. Things with Emily are over. I'm trying, Mom. I'm really trying. I looked at him, at the boy I'd once hoped would do better, at the man who never understood what it meant to choose someone and keep choosing them. I hope it works out for you, Michael, I said, but you can't stay here. He blinked, hurt and surprised, as if I'd never said no before. He left the wine. I poured it down the drain. Charles tried next. He called late at night, the kind of call that means someone's really alone. He rambled about old memories, about Cynthia moving out, about how maybe he'd made a mistake. Do you ever miss me, Martha? I answered honestly. No, not anymore. Silence. He tried again. Would you ever consider no, Charles? Not in this life, not in the next. Cynthia emailed me once. A long, awkward apology. She blamed stress, illness, Charles, Michael, everyone but herself. I never answered. I wasn't angry. I wasn't even cold. I was just done. Done explaining. Done forgiving. Done letting people who threw me away find their way back through my doors. That summer, I changed every lock, left every old habit behind. And when I caught my own reflection in the kitchen window one evening, wine glass in hand, soft jazz playing, nobody calling my name, I smiled. Because the greatest freedom I ever found was the space I made for myself once I stopped making space for anyone else. The first leaves fell early that year. I woke up, made coffee in my brand new kitchen, looked out over my garden, and realized I hadn't thought about Charles or Michael in weeks, not even in passing. I had plans book club at 11 lunch with 2 neighbors who laughed loud and never asked me for anything, a pottery class at 3. My calendar was full, but only with things that belonged to me. On the day the house on Cedar Lane was finally demolished, I drove by one last time. I didn't cry. I didn't get out of the car. I just parked across the street, watched the excavators do their work, and thought about how some endings don't come with drama. Some just come with relief. I took a photo with my phone. Not to remember the past, but to remind myself nothing is permanent. Not a house, not a marriage, not a role someone else gives you. The only thing that lasts is the life you build when you decide you're worth starting over for. That night, I poured a glass of champagne, sat out on my patio, and watched the sun set over a city that finally felt like home. No one called. No one knocked. No one needed me for anything but my own company. And as the sky faded from gold to purple, I realized I didn't survive for them to regret losing me. I survived to find out how good it feels when the only person left to take care of is myself.